A business is defined by its ability to generate cash flows in the future. Comparing cash flows shows the difference between low-growth businesses and high-growth startups at its starkest. Most of the value of low-growth businesses is in the near term. An old economy business might hold its value if it can maintain its current cash flows for 5 or 6 years, while technology companies often lose money for the first few years to build something valuable. This age of globalization has made it easy to imagine that the decades ahead will bring more convergence and more sameness. Even our everyday language suggests we believe in a kind of technological end of history. The division of the world into the so-called developed and developing nations implies that the developed world has already achieved the achievable and that poorer nations just need to catch up. Every one of today's most famous and familiar ideas was once unknown and unexpected. Kaczynski argued that modern people are depressed because all the world's hard problems have already been solved. What's left to do is either easy or impossible. The actual truth is that there are many more secrets left to find, but they will yield only to relentless researchers. There is more to do in science, medicine, engineering, and in technology of all kinds. Everyone learned to treat the future as fundamentally indefinite, and to dismiss as an extremist anyone with plans big enough to be measured in years instead of quarters. All companies must be lean, which is code for unplanned. You should not know what your business will do. Planning is arrogant and inflexible. Instead, you should try things out, iterate, and treat entrepreneurship as agnostic experimentation. So-called perfectly competitive markets achieve equilibrium when producer supply meets consumer demand. Since no firm has any market power, they must all sell whatever price the market determines. If there is money to be made, new firms will enter the market, increase supply, drive prices down, and thereby eliminate the profits that attracted them in the first place. Under perfect competition, in the long run, no company makes an economic profit. There's an enormous difference between perfect competition and monopoly, and most businesses are much closer to one extreme than we commonly realize. The confusion comes from a universal bias for describing market conditions in self-serving ways. Both monopolists and competitors are incentivized to bend the truth. Monopolies lie to protect themselves, while non-monopolists are always biased to understate the scale of competition. Even though sales is everywhere, most people underrate its importance. The field of dreams conceit is especially popular in Silicon Valley, where engineers are biased toward building cool stuff rather than selling it. But customers will not come just because you build it. You have to make that happen, and it's harder than it looks. Advertising matters because it works, and anyone who can't acknowledge its likely effect on himself is doubly deceived. Creative monopolists give customers more choices by adding entirely new categories of abundance to the world. Creative monopolies aren't just good for the rest of society, they're powerful engines for making it better. The history of progress is a history of better monopoly businesses replacing incumbents. They drive progress because the promise of years or even decades of monopoly profits provide a powerful incentive to innovate. Sometimes you do have to fight. Where that's true, you should fight and win. There is no middle ground. This advice can be hard to follow because pride and honor get in the way. Anyone would fight for things that matter. True heroes take their personal honor so seriously, they will fight for things that don't matter. This twisted logic is part of human nature. If you can recognize competition as a destructive force instead of a sign of value, you're already more sane than most. Creating value is not enough. You also need to capture some of the value you create. In 2012, when the average airfare each way was $178, the airlines made only 37 cents per passenger trip. Compare them to Google, which creates less value but captures far more. Google brought in $50 billion in 2012, but it kept 21% of those revenues as profits. Google makes so much money that it's now worth 3 times more than every U.S. airline combined.